Hey folks, it's Ben. I'm here in my 2002 Pontiac Grand Prix. It runs and starts and everything's seemingly cool, with the exception of that my AC controlled unit doesn't actually have power a lot. It's on, but it doesn't act like the car's running. And long story short, through some research several years ago, I dug that 2002 Pontiac Grand Prix have an ignition switch issue. And that causes the car to sometimes not start, sometimes not know that it's running. So like the AC won't turn on because it doesn't think the motor's on even though it is. So I don't know where this came from. I printed it and it's from 2009 and it's Sparky's something. And there's no website actually on the printout. But it's a step-by-step guide on how to change this right here in my lap. This is the ignition switch. So it's not the actual key set, right? But it actually sits here in the column, I'm guessing similar to that, and allows the tumbler, the key tumbler, to rotate itself and to tell the car to start and tell the car when it's running and things like that. And we have to run the cable, of course, through the column, and then it replaces it's got a big connection right here that tells the car what's going on. So what we have to do in this video is to replace this wiring and then this big switch you see here, which I believe I got from Napa. We have to put this into the column. Now my car is slightly torn apart, as you can see already, just because I was already kind of figuring out what was going on here. So I'm not that far away myself from having the column apart, which is where we need to go. Now we're only replacing that part, so we have to tread lightly because we don't want to break anything. Now this is more of a guide than a how-to, mainly because I've never done this before. But I've done it before lots of times. When I shoot a video, this is how you do it, and I walk through every step. This is a guide for me. I'm going to be learning myself as we go along here on this adventure. So I've talked enough. People who are watching this video have to do it themselves, so let's just get to the cut. And I'm going to start, I think the next step I have here is actually to remove this plate. And I think we have some, that looks like a Phillips, but I think they're Torx. But I believe we need to remove this metal plate next as we try to get this plastic part of the column apart. So we're in our project now. First thing I did was remove this big steel plate that's across here, and that pretty much exposes everything. It's held on by 4 Phillips screws, one on each end, and then there are actually 4 10mm bolts, which you'll be able to see here. And they actually hold that big piece underneath the car here. So you can see it's wide open right now. Now, an interesting fact about this car, let me tell you this first though. And then of course you separate the column apart. There's some more Torx screws underneath here that release everything, but there is a little hook on the back here, so note that. The other thing you do need to remove is the tilt steering here, and it's just the clip. See how it's clipped in? So if you pull on it hard or use a light pry device, you can pop it out, and that allows you to then remove the bottom part. So you got that to look forward to. And then the top is, I haven't really messed with that part yet, but we're getting there. If you come down here, you can see that's the plug where we're going. My flashlight's a little bright here. That's the plug where we're going, is right here. And these are our group of wires. So it comes from our switch, which is back here, and through the column and these group of wires. Now, stop the bus. What the hell is this? Well, at some point, this car I knew had been in an accident, just because the bumpers are undercoated with a different color. But someone had actually spliced all the wires from my ignition switch up here to that box there. So here's my, the one I have here is continuous wire, but someone had actually come through and cut them and soldered them all together for whatever reason. Maybe it's a different column, maybe to make the key work, they just cut the old one off and put the new one in. And instead of changing it, they just cut it all. So we'll be removing all this, and this could be part of why my car doesn't work, is that one of these solders has failed or something along those lines. So I got that going for me. So the next step I'll stop off at is hopefully we'll have this switch kind of taken apart, which is up over here. Okay, so I watched some YouTube videos recently and kind of learned more about how this column works. This bottom part here, you can't see because I don't have well in the light. This is actually underneath the compartment here. There's this pop-up and there's a hole there, and did it fall off? Yeah. There was an earplug plugged up in there. This guy here. I'm like, what the heck's that about? And then I'm not sure why. And then I come over here to this hard to get a shot of with that thing so wide, but this right here, we get all our lines together, there we go. This device right here, what does this do? Well, what it does, I guess, is if something's not right or something's wrong, the car will lock the key in the ignition. And I guess even if the battery's super dead. So in order to get that key out, you pop that little plastic part off the base there, and you can stick a screwdriver, press down a button, and it will release the key to come out of the ignition. That's great. But if you notice mine, and I don't know if I can get a great shot on this or not. Wait for the edit, I guess. The white thing here, if you'll notice, it's got a push button part and a zip tie. So what somebody has done actually is zip tied this thing always in bypass, so the key always comes out. So more hackery of my column here that I didn't know existed. And then I also learned a neat trick. We got to get the passkey module out, and to do that we have to take the tumbler out, and that's really easy to do. This will kind of be hard to do with the without a tripod. But you put the key in, and of course with our column completely car disconnected, you go forward, and then you take like a 90-degree pick or any other pick, but they used a 90-degree pick, and right where this hole is, you can press in there. There's a little catch, and it should come right out. See if I can prop the phone up right. Boop. I guess we're pushing in that little, there's a latch right here, and by pushing it to start, you can push it in, and that lets you take the key out. And that's the awesomeness of that. So, next step is we'll take this out, and that's pretty obvious, I hopefully think. Time travel to a week later. We're on our ignition key install. We're actually reassembled. We've actually achieved the point of where we can actually start testing things. So let me tell you how I got here first. Of course, I have the pass key and all that back on as well. Long story short, I'm going to highlight this in the beginning of the video and everything that goes along the line here. See that screw right there? You need a special special socket for that. That is an E5 inverted Torx. There are 2 of them, and it's a special bit, which I don't know if I can turn the camera here, just an inverted Torx. But man, that stopped me in my tracks last week. I got everything up to that point. I'm like, how am I going to get those out? And how tight are they? The reality is they're not very tight, but you do need the special bit. It's $5 for the bit. It's pretty cheap. Most kits don't include it because it's an E5, not usually they're E6 and higher, I've read on the internet. I don't care. I just bought a long E5 quarter drive, and that's all you needed to get the switch out. But they don't tell you that in the guide I had, so you go right along and it's like, well, I couldn't find a Torx screw that would fit there. I had to get the E5 socket, so heads up for that, okay? On top here, we've got the button switch here. This tells you if the key's in the ignition or not. That turns out. So you turn it clockwise. There's a little clip right here you can press out of the way. It turns clockwise, and you get a new one with your switch. So if you destroy it, no big deal. This piece here I've learned is a key eject mechanism. And in my car, it has been bypassed. So I can't get a great camera angle on that. I'm sorry. But they have zip tied the bypass button down. There was a plastic hole you can pop out, put up there, and it would lock the bypass. I don't know if I mentioned that in the prior video or not. So with those screws out, it just pulls right out. It's fairly easy. In fact, here's my old one right here. And so it pulls out, and it's as easy as that. You unplug. This connector is for the key eject, and this is the whole switch assembly for telling the car that the key is in. That's a little nub there, and it sticks into the tumbler. This is the crap that supposed to be completely wired through. I don't know if they hacked it up by accident, because like the brown wire and the black wire are fine. And then here is the connector, special connector. There are 2 connectors on each side, and they come out forward, right? So they would normally, you bend them a little bit, and you can have them come out on each side. And then when you put the new ones in, you just kind of click them in. Just keep the orientation the way they were. Everything is so bound up, you know, from being in the car for 20 years that, you know, it has the wiring has a memory. So down here, there's a 7mm socket in the center of the plug. Here's the top one and the bottom one. And they clip, you take the 7 out, you pull the whole assembly out, you take the 2 up and down ones off, replace the whole, wire assembly, put it back, clip those 2 clips back on, and then screw the whole thing back in, making sure you're not bending any little clips as you put it back on there. And at this point, I just have my wires here. My passkey has the whites that are not connected. That's not cool, unless they don't go anywhere, but I have no idea what they've done. There's a wire splice there too going up to the utility assembly, so lots of crap I'm having to deal with that hopefully you won't have to deal with. I will wire tie the rest of this back up together, but that doesn't mean the car can't attempt to start, right? So the passkey I put back on. You never have to unconnect a wire for that. You just set it out of the way. You do have to take the tumbler out to do that because it's kind of wrapped around it, but it clips on, so that's clipped. So in theory, everything is good to go. We just have to put, some power on the car now. And that's what I'm doing now. So I'll go hook up the battery and we'll come back here. I got some more fresh gas. We'll put some seafoam and some more gas in the car too. Hopefully that will help things along as well. Man, I'm nervous. I have a lot of anxiety with this car. I don't know why, but technically everything electric is hooked up. The battery's hooked up now. Let's crank it, see what happens. If it will crank, that's the goal. Hey, keys in. Well, that is fantastic. Something's catching up. That air control motor's trying to kick butt. Let's turn this on. Holy crap, look at that. The AC turned on. Whoa. Something built a nest in my freaking AC system. Damn it. So that's not cool, but awesome. I don't hear it running though. That might have been it. Tough to say. We gotta probably fix that before we do anything. Oh, the AC turned off. That's because I turned it off. On. That I don't think it did before, so that's great news. I wonder if it can switch to defrost. That would be the one thing it would not do for sure. And it does. Nice. Cool. So that's functioning and that's important. So that says the key is so far so good. The car is settled down. So fantastic. It says I have low coolant again. That's the sensor, not the car. It's had that issue before. So it seems so far so good. I'm gonna keep putting stuff back together again. Will be me driving the thing out of here, which probably will be today, but I'll see. Guys, thanks for watching. Leave any questions or comments down below, and be sure to subscribe to my channel for awesome updates on what I'm doing. Please check out the next video I've got lined up for you, and also check out my Patreon page if you want to support what we're doing here. And finally, check out my other less tractory page, Red Barn Homestead. You can subscribe to that too, see some awesome stuff. And we'll see you next time.